Welcome to our living room. My name is Yafa. I'm a Canadian Palestinian, and I'm a volunteer with the Canada Friends of Standing Together. And it is just my absolute honor to be here to amplify these three phenomenal gentlemen. Before I begin and read the bios of these incredible people beside me, on whose shoulders I stand upon, I would like to first acknowledge and have a moment of silence for many people that were killed over the weekend that actually one of our panelists is directly related to. And I'm going to read their names out loud from the Shawwa family: Mazen, Ahmad, Abdullah, Azam, Shahad, and Tasneem, murdered by a bomb from the Israeli army this weekend. If we could please have a moment of silence. Thank you. I also recognize and am heartbroken for the hostages that are still in Gaza. It was good to see Elena Zichik here this morning to talk about David and Ariel, who are still held, and so our hearts absolutely go out to that family as well. I know you've heard the land acknowledgement already. As a Canadian, I love land acknowledgements. I thought, what a good idea, and maybe we should bring it back home. What do you think? Okay, once somebody said, okay, and somebody said yes, okay. You know, last time I was here downtown, as a Canadian, I really don't like to go downtown because of the traffic. Last time I was here, it was for the Indigenomics Conference, where we Canadian business leaders meet with Indigenous First Nations leaders. And the first thing I say is hey, thank you for letting my parents, uninvited settlers, come and live here, and we are refugees, so thank you. And also I say I'm so sorry for the long and slow genocide that has been committed on your people and continue to commit today. And I'm not conflating this with that. I know we don't like to compare. At the same time, what I notice when I say this to Indigenous First Nations leaders, to CEOs of the First Nations Credit Union or CEOs of the Saugeen Nation, who are basically running private equity companies of like 11 different businesses, you know, they say, thank you for being an ally, comma, how are we doing business together? So I just wanted to acknowledge that here, that we are sitting on land that used to be custodians of the Mississaugas of the Hyundai, the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, Inuit, and Métis people continue to live here and are among us. So thank you for letting us. Okay, the disclaimers are done. I'd like to first introduce Raja Khouri to my right. Raja is the CEO of Khouri Conversations and the co-CEO of Conversations Without Walls with our dear friend, Dr. Jeffrey Wilkinson as well. He's the founding president of the Canadian Arab Institute, former senior fellow with the Wellesley Institute, and previously served for 10 years as the commissioner of the Ontario Human Rights Commission, which is not an easy task. It's a very heavy task. Raja is now co-founder of the Canadian Arab Jewish Leadership Dialogue Group. His professional background in organizational development, public engagement, and capacity building continues to inspire us all. He wrote a book called The Wall Between with Dr. Jeffrey Wilkinson. I encourage you to pick it up and purchase it and read it. And it's beside my bed, so I'm always flipping through it. And then to his left, we have the esteemed engineer Bashar Al Shawwa, a distinguished researcher, engineer, and expert in regional and international political affairs, specializing in conflict resolution, sustainable development, and advocacy. With extensive experience analyzing Palestinian and Israeli internal affairs, he's an analyst and advocate for joint efforts in regional peacemaking. Currently, Mr. Shawwa serves as the Director of the Strategic Communications and Advocacy at C-Space Group Conflict Resolution, where he leads efforts to build resilience to anti-Muslim and anti-Jewish hate here in Canada, strengthens resilience to polarization, and builds alliances. Thank you so much for being here. Also, considering that you are in active mourning as your family has just been murdered, so I'm just floored that you're here, and thank you so much. And then, last but not least, we have Mohanad Berekdar. Mohanad Berekdar is a longtime civil society leader in Israel, a Palestinian citizen of Israel, and the director of the New Israel Front's Nasij, which is Tapestry in Arabic program, strengthening the civil society of Palestinian citizens of Israel. He expands the reality on the ground for his community in Israel in the fraught post-October 7th Israeli society. He is mainly working with Shatil, an Israeli-based operating arm that helps build movements, train the next generation of Palestinian leaders and civil society, and supports organizations working to effect positive change. So, and you hail from Nazareth. Yes. So we have representing Nazareth, Ramallah, West Bank, Gaza, and now Toronto, Canada, and Canada, Lebanon, Palestine. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's have a round of applause for our phenomenal speakers. Raja, I always learn so much from you, and my first question for you is, as a Canadian Palestinian, I would love to hear how the last 2 years have affected you. And further to that, you have been across the country with Dr. Wilkinson, and you have spoken to thousands and thousands of Muslims and Jews in Canada. So I'm going to prompt you with some AI prompts because you are probably more intelligent than ChatGPT when it comes to understanding the relations between Canadian Muslims and Jews here. So I'd love for you to share with us how has it been?
Well, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for inviting us to come and speak with you today. To the protesters outside, I would say when a Jewish group asks you to come and tell them about your experience and about your narrative, it's an opportunity that should not be dismissed or even attacked. But I do not dismiss these protesters outside as a previous speaker did this morning, because I understand their anguish, I understand their anger, and I understand that to them they're watching what they believe to be a genocide happening on their screens every day. Now, the other part of the title of our book is what Jews and Palestinians don't want to know about each other. And that's the sad reality that we live in. So, coming here to tell you about me and my narrative, and is something that I do appreciate, because the majority of you and the majority of us do not want to know about the other. And I shared a little story. When our book first came out, I had a box of it at home, and my housekeeper happened to come in and looked at the book, and she said, "Oh, of course." And I said, "What do you mean, of course?" So, of course, because once you learn about the other, then you have to compromise. And I hadn't thought of it that way, but here's this grade 6 educated woman with such a pearl of wisdom that spoke volumes. Now, Mr. Meridor this morning said that Israel is not the kind of country that would push people out of their homes to create a Jewish majority. Apparently, he hasn't heard about the Nakba of 1948. The reason I mention this is that, to me, to this Palestinian who's had his hand outstretched to the Jewish community for 18 years, who has done a lot of work with your colleague, Karen Mock, one of your leaders, in dialogue and promoting understanding. The first thing that I need from you is to recognize the Nakba and not to blame me for it, and to take responsibility for what your community, the part that your community has played in the Nakba making it happen. My parents fled Palestine in 1948 and were never allowed to go back. This is a big part of my heritage, of my history. And as you heard Yafa now and Yara Sachs in the morning doing the land acknowledgement, we do the land acknowledgement for a reason, because that's the starting point for reconciliation. That's the starting point for us to start understanding, the other side and recognizing the impact that we've had on the indigenous people of this country. As my colleague Jeffrey Wilkinson often says, he says that he realizes that everything that his community gained in terms of self-determination, it took from the Palestinians. And I need you to understand that this is how I feel. Everything that Zionism gave Jews, it took away from me. I have always said, and will always say, that I fully support Jewish self-determination, and that my only problem is that it happened in my bedroom. And I still can't go back to it. And I was blamed that I let my bedroom get away from me because I didn't accept the partition. No one would accept the partition plan of their country, of where they're living. Canada will not accept a deal that will take away 55% of its land and give it to Trump. We saw how patriotic we became once, our independence and sovereignty was threatened. Now, so
Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for sharing this. I think it's really good to acknowledge that as a first step. I'm going to come back to you. I just wanted to also hear from Bashar. Tell us about how has the last, stretch been for you. I know you've been back and forth. You have a wide range of experiences. I'd love to hear how it was for you on the day-to-day in the West Bank, and now coming to Canada. How is it for you?
Okay, thank you, and thanks for everyone for being here. And it's strange here in Canada. In fact, I've been to the protest outside, and I'm now here. And in both places, I feel comfort and peace. Because I do agree with many chants been said downstairs and disagree with some. The same happened here. I listen to some stuff I agree with and disagree with. And it's something we have the luxury to have here in Canada. But at the same time, we have the luxury of time to debate, to disagree, to fight over definitions, while people on the ground are striving for food, water, and to survive and to protect their own kids. So me being here is a bless. I'm enjoying this heaven, honestly. But I have this guilt because I'm organically connected to that land. And Yafa, I didn't want to come, honestly, today. I was asking myself, me coming here, first physically I couldn't, but emotionally, me coming here is me betraying my people back home. And in fact, I reminded myself that I belong to a camp, that it's our way to honor the memories of innocent civilians is to come and to tell the story. The story that, in fact, you might didn't like it. Honestly, I'm here not to make this event another gathering for my fellow progressive Jews to feel comfort or less guilt. And I'm apologizing because I'm gonna say some stuff you might don't like, but I have to share so. I have to share that everyone in this room, including me, have the guilt of the atrocities happening now because one day we decided either to remain silent or not to do enough, or in fact support the process that led to the genocide happening right now. For different reasons. For feeling more Jew, for the idea of I criticize Israel, I might be an anti-Semite. If I stand for justice, I might take it in a double standards. So when the kids outside chant, justice is our demand, no peace on stolen land, I totally agree with that. When they said no peace, no security, no justice, it's connected. And we need to remind ourselves that it's now the time or ever we step and we do it this time, because humanity had this challenge a few years ago when we stood as humans and we say never again, because something bad happened at that time. And I believe now we have the opportunity to stand, but to make it real this time, that it's never again means never again for anyone. Because I belong to the camp where Palestinians and Israelis worked together for many years. We've been called the peace building camp. And the biggest challenge we had after October 7th, to issue a joint statement. We've been working for years together, shoulder by shoulder, going to the field, trying to confront and to stop any violation caused by the conflict. But it was hard for us, and it took us time to reach the fact that we can issue a joint statement saying that targeting innocent civilians is wrong, no matter when, no matter how, no matter who, no matter where. And I'm here to bring this audience and myself to this basic human value. Human lives worth. And killing innocent civilians is wrong. And doing nothing about this, it might be another reason for these spoilers to continue with the atrocities they are doing. So life to life. We for sure, I belong to a group of people that do follow the news back home in Gaza, but in the West Bank, things are really horrible. You know that I'm here almost a year and a few months, and my family joined a few months ago, thanks to my real friend, Yara Sachs, who helped that. But for the last year, I spent every midnight at 12 a.m. Canada time talking with my wife every single night, because she was in Ramallah with my kids, making sure no invasion by the Israeli army, no attacks by the settlers before driving my kids to school. Every single day. This is a kind of life I had. In fact, I'm blessed because maybe my family now here, but every other day we got the news from back home that settlers burned, settlers attacked. Ayman mentioned Oud Hadalin. We've been at Vivian Silver event. Thousands of innocent and brave people been damaged by this ongoing conflict. I know that I have to stop, but please don't make this event another occasion for us to come and feel better and less guilt. We need to take something with us back home, to our communities, our families, our friends, and to do something. Please, I beg you. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. Is someone's cell phone on? Did somebody forget to turn off their notifications? No? Everyone silent? Okay. Maybe it was me. It was my cell phone with the honking sound. Mohanad, I would love to hear about your day-to-day in Nazareth. You're a father. I'm a mother. We have fathers here. You have young children. Tell us about what the day-to-day is like today in your community.
Hi. Good afternoon. And thank you also, Yafa, for having me, and also for the organizers of the conference. Maybe I would, where to start? Because it's really dark times we are going through. And I wrote some stuff that are important to me to mention, but also listening to the previous sessions, raised other issues that I would like also to address, because it's important not just to bring my personal experience, but rather also political questions and social issues that are brought here. But I would like to start from two questions from my family, one from my wife and one from my older son. We moved to our new home just last year. We've built it for 3 years. We've built a house and moved last year. And after looking at the news and we're going, my wife approached me and asked me, Mohanad, do you think that they will take this house from us? Will we stay here? What will happen? And it comes from the unimaginable things that are happening, that even the most extreme nightmares for us are happening today. In Gaza, definitely no one imagined the magnitude on the scale of the genocide and the starvation. Also in the occupied West Bank, what's happening, thousands of people are get expelled from their houses, and destruction in the West Bank, although like it's less in the news, but also destruction and expulsion is happening. So in a way, the Nakba is not really finished. In 48, people are getting pushed from their houses. The attacks of settlers in the West Bank are on everyday basis now. Also flaming their farms on fire and kicking them out of their houses. So the feeling that it's still going on, and we as a Palestinian citizens in Israel, we feel the same, like we are a natural expansion and of the Palestinian people. Like I feel like just by chance, I'm living in Nazareth, not in Khan Yunis or Gaza. And now I'm lucky that I have sit and eating dinner with my kids, while I'm really, like by chance, I could be now, I don't know if alive or not, in Gaza. So, and this feeling is every moment with us. We are by chance, like there's something very like, death is so close to us. The second question by my older son, he's 10 years old, and he's asking me why we were born here. This country is full of problems. Let's get out of here. Because he sees the news. He sees whatever. Like we know, we're no longer even going to Jewish places like Tel Aviv or other places because we don't feel safe in these places. And we don't feel that we belong to these places. And he's constantly saying, why are we living? And they are connected, like they're seeing people living in Europe, living in America, and living in Dubai and other places. And life goes on as normal. But still, we are in a really difficult space. And in terms of what happened after the 7th of October, I think in that I still remember the morning because most of my colleagues, I work in the New Israel Fund, Shatil, and most of my colleagues are Jewish. I still remember the WhatsApp group of the organizational consultants. Where are you? Are you safe? What's happening? And I feel like what's happening? I woke up at 6:30, and started seeing like what's happening. And my first feeling was, are you okay? If anyone wants to come, and we have two colleagues who lived in the south, and one of them, her town was attacked, and I offered to come to Nazareth. Like this is the first thing, come to Nazareth and stay with us. And but at the same breath, at the same moment, I felt fear. What will happen to Gaza after this? Like this, my main feeling through these 2 years, I think it's sadness and grief, but also fear and silence. The Palestinians inside Israel were totally silenced. Even the feelings of sadness and anger were not allowed to be expressed. Maybe just two feelings that we can express, maybe solidarity with the hostages and the family of hostages, with I totally also sympathize, and condemning Hamas. Like this is the spectrum of the freedom of expression in Israel for Palestinians. And that's why it's still, just 2 months ago, the first protest by Palestinians was at Sachin. 10,000 people went out to protest for demonstration to end the war. And for almost 1.5 years, we were not allowed to go out and just say end the war. There's an oppressive, very suppressive fascist regime that is silencing and persecuting anyone who's trying to criticize, because it's perceived as a criticism. Sympathy to end like the starvation and the genocide is perceived as criticism and anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic. So at the moment we feel that we are silenced, and the most maybe survival tool for us just to stay away of these discussions.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you very much. What I heard is just, extreme courage from all of you. I heard lots of emotions, lots of pain. I think one thing, in segueing to the next question for all of you, is I look around this room and I think this whole conference is really a group of people who are courageous. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to express dissent. Expressing dissent also in an interfaith community where it's very sensitive. So I wanted to thank everybody here and everyone in this room as well who expresses dissent in a different way. I think everybody's, views are valid to come to the table. As long as you're coming to the table with your words and not a gun, I welcome you, absolutely. I think it can also be a very thankless job to be a dissenter. I'm just curious about can we talk about dissent and the culture of dissent? And what have you experienced, I think, going across the country in Canada, talking to Jews and Muslims across the country with your book tour? What is the call to action to support voices of dissent, either within the singular interfaith community or even in the single faith, so in a unifaith versus a multi-faith? Does that make sense? How do we support voices of dissent and giving people more courage to dissent?
That's a difficult question you're asking me here. I noticed actually that I didn't answer your first question.
Please go ahead.
So let me
Let's just add 60 minutes. Just kidding.
I'd like to answer the first question just briefly. It's going around the country. Large numbers of people came to hear us everywhere we went. In Vancouver, there was a big church that we were in. About 400 people were in the room. Probably 90% of them were Jewish. These are the good signs that I can, point to in terms of the silver lining, if you want. The interest in around the country in what is happening over there has never been like this. Our most keen audience has been other Canadians who have, they're not Jewish or Arab or Muslim or anything, who were just, flabbergasted by this conflict that's thousands of miles away that has landed in our living rooms here. And most people, the average Canadian had never heard of the Nakba, had never actually known much about the Palestinian narrative. It just hasn't been known to Canadians. They haven't heard it much. And now they're hearing it, and they were hearing it from us, and the first question they ask, how come we haven't heard this before? So these are some of the positive aspects of what we've encountered.
How did the Muslim community react? I'm curious about the 10% in the room. Did you feel supported? Did you feel tokenized? How did you feel?
Those who came to hear us, yes, they were supportive, but not enough of them came. That's a long story. The anti-normalization movement and all that stuff that's gets in the way. But the other thing that really gets in the way is some of the mainstream organizations of the Jewish community that have been silent all this time about what's happening in Gaza. And they've demonized the pro-Palestinian rallies, called them terror supporters. That doesn't help. Does not help us here talking to each other. And the language used about Canada's recognition of a Palestinian state, it was like as if Canada was calling for another Holocaust. So these are the things that are not helping. When lefty students on university campuses go tell a Jewish student to go back to Poland, that certainly is not helping either. This is what our work, Jeff and I, has been the last 2 years, is pushing back on this polarization, the demonization, And, bringing back humanity. Humanity has been lost. How could this world be watching, the tremendous loss of life in Gaza, children being starved? Can you imagine if this had been the other way around, if Palestinians were starving Jews? That wouldn't have been accepted, and neither this should be accepted either. But we continue. The world continues carrying on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know. We want to show the other room that we're having fun too, right? Last thing I'm going to say, and this is all an answer to the first question, by the way. People often ask us when we were, traveling, where do you find hope? How can you go on? Well, we tell them often is that the hope, not having hope, is not an option. It's a must. There's no alternative to that, because if we don't have hope, we're going to have hate. And I've seen how so many of young people from your community, particularly in the United States, who have stood up and said, "This you can't do this in our name." And they sat in the trenches at university campuses with fellow Palestinian and Arab and Muslim students and called for justice and for the end of the genocide. This is hope. This is hope. When we start understanding the other's narrative and feeling the need to promote that narrative as much as we want to promote our own narrative, and then that's mm-hmm. when there is hope. I'll answer the second question later.
Sure. In the Q&A time. That was excellent. Thank you for sharing this. I think it's really good for us to have an understanding of what's happening and the hope that you're seeing. I think we all really need hope. See a lot of heads nodding. Feels a little bit like the choir. Can we make it a little bit more spicy? I don't know. Okay, Mr. Al Shawwa, I'd love to hear from you. What gives you hope, if anything, right now in this movement, and also talk about being like the concept of a dissenting voice, whether if it's dissenting within our community or dissenting in between communities. How do we support diverse voices and not silence each other?
Yeah. First of all, I wish we have the luxury to lose hope. We don't have it. We're counting dead bodies back home. And honestly, I faced many shocking things here in Canada when I came last year, but the most shocking thing was the polarization and hate here in Canada. Because the stereotype I had that Canadians are kind, polite, if they disagree over dinner, next day things are okay, but no. People are afraid here. And I maybe didn't mention it. I was born as a refugee, so my childhood was traveling around trying to find a place that allowed me to study, and I lived in dictatorships. In Iraq during Saddam, Syria during Assad the father, and I witnessed where people were terrified to, to speak. Like when professors are afraid to discuss a book or an article. And oops, I saw it here in Canada. This was extremely shocking for me. And I didn't like it because, for many reasons, I come from that place when people do normalize with hate, live with it, justify it, and then cheer for it. So I come from that dark place, and I witness it here in Canada that if Canadians do nothing about this, it will take Canada to a very dark place. About the fear of expressing yourselves. It's something it's my values. Like today, one of the speakers said something I agree and something I disagree with. And at the same time, I've been to the protest, listened to something I agree and something I disagree. But for sure, I will die for both of them, just to give them the right to speak and express their feelings. Because I was raised as an refugee, the other, less rights. And I know how it's painful when you're silenced. Imagine a word will cost you your life. So this polarization is not only terrifying because it's justifying horrible things, but it's the idea of oppressing people's right to speak. And we are offering here an opportunity of at least finding a way to disagree. I never expected myself communicating with a Jew before joining the human rights peace camp. Then I had this kind of Israeli colleagues that we were like working together. We disagreed on many things, but at the end of the day, facing all these hard, bad news that preventing us from going to work together, we ended up in the field working together, trying to co-resist the horrible status quo we're living back home. And I found a great opportunity here in Canada, having all these Shabbat dinners with my Jewish Canadian fellows and the Saturday, and all these like exciting Jewish activities. I didn't have the chance before, but we can be at the same room and we can have a chance to talk to each other. When we understand that it's part of our identity to be in this room, it's not the opposite. It's not my identity preventing me from dealing with the other. In fact, my identity says I have to go and give the other the right to express their feelings and beliefs. Back home, it's much harder because I can't sit with a soldier or a settler who is expressing the genocide and the ethnic cleansing and the apartheid, name whatever, all these kind of hate and oppression. But how come I will waste a chance to bring people together to stand for a noble cause? So yeah, this is what I witnessed here. But you asked, Raja, a really interesting question about how do the local community, Muslims, Palestinians, Arabs take this. And there is a challenge I'm facing here in Canada with Jews and non-Jews, Arabs, Muslims, Palestinians. You have to invest to prove yourself that you are a good Palestinian. And for Palestinians and Arab, I have to show my suffer. I was born a refugee, displaced, been detained, beaten by soldiers, shot by soldier, took time to walk again, lost family, lost friends, lost colleagues, to show that I'm a real Palestinian. And for Jews, I have to sound reasonable and to condemn Hamas and to agree and to speak with, this Western North American nice language. And in fact, it's an investment and effort I don't like to do, honestly. I'm being honestly because I come from a culture when you respect someone, you speak honestly, and I respect the people here in this room. But people not ready yet to be in that room. People still, protecting themselves by being in the comfort zone. To be only with the audience that will like to listen and to hear what we say. And this is a mistake. We did it back home for 30 years as a peace camp, talking only to the converted. And we ended up as a minority in silos. So we don't have the luxury to do the same mistake again.
Bravo. Thank you. Very, very additive. Thank you very much. Mohanad, same question to you, just to repeat. I think, yes, optimism and hope. I mean, recognizing that you're living in a time with extreme crime, including organized crime in Nazareth. And, what can we do here to help you as you go back home and think about how your kid walks to the grocery store and whether they can walk alone or not. And then also, if you want to address maybe how do we help voices of dissent or diverse voices in our community or outside of our community. So optimism in a time of crime.
And also questions, there are three questions together.
In 5 minutes.
Same time.
Just 5 minutes.
But I would like to pick up from
please,
this.
Please.
Continue.
Just avoid the Palestinian mother look,
About the thing about proving yourself to others. And I think this is something I also interact and face in many places. Like, we need to prove ourselves worthy before, humane, have values, and have voice also, and then to speak. And I think proving yourself, this is something that comes in the politics and the discussions around, even when we take numbers of what's happening in Gaza. We usually say, okay, kids, how many kids are killed? Women, innocent people. And men, somehow, they are already automatically, they are considered, stigmatized like potential terrorists, or they're like, this is the starting point. Something wrong, and no, you need to prove yourself otherwise. And I think this is something needs to be reflected on, first of all, for us, but it's also the product of decades of dehumanization of Palestinians through the main media channels, the hasbara, the propaganda. Always there's something wrong, and you need to be cautious about Palestinians. And at some point, in also Palestinians, but also how they are perceived, their lives are less worthy. And this connects me to the question of crime and violence also inside Israel in the Palestinian society. Some of you maybe are aware of it, some of you still not, but for the last 15 years we are suffering of a big wave of organized crime and violence inside the Arab society. In average, every year there's between 200 to 230 people are murdered by organized crime. And we are only 2 million people, like we are a fifth of the population in Israel. Compared to Jordan, Lebanon, all Arab countries around us, we are way higher in terms of crimes. And with all the attempts also to decrease it, we cannot. People, civilians, cannot combat organized crime with weapons. And that's the second question of my son, is why I can't go to the store that it's 100 meters from my house by myself, because I'm afraid to go and witness a crime that it's happening. The police is not doing enough to handle this, where we are seeing over-policing in terms of protest and demonstration and political active people who are persecuted by the police. When someone write a political post, they know how to catch him. But 230 people killed, they can't find who are the criminals. The rate of solving crimes in the Arab society is 15%. That means that when a criminal goes out to shoot someone, he knows in his head that most probably he will not be caught. When we compare it to the Jewish society, it's 80% solving rate. So they know. And this is related to the worth of human lives, how they are perceived by the state of Israel. And I think it's connected to many places. To go to the bigger pictures of the overall policy of Israel, like it's for us, the supremacy of the Jewish people, it's our first priority. And there is a supremacy, Jewish supremacy. And I think the wording of a democratic Jewish state, even if you repeat it a whole 10 years, every year, it wouldn't make sense and it would not be natural for us. It still will inflict two classes. In the state law, nation state law in 2018, they told us clearly, you are a second class there. And by that, your life is less.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. I know we have 15 minutes left. I'm going to start the Q&A early, just that we have time to work through this. While you're thinking of your questions, I know there's a microphone in the room. Where is the microphone for the Q&A? So he's got the mic in the back. And yes, we will repeat. Would be great to have a question with a question mark, and please be respectful. And yeah, please go ahead. Okay, Mr. Khatib. Tfaddal. Zoe, do you want to give him the microphone, please?
Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Yatikul afia. So my question is to whoever feels like taking this. In the spirit of what Yafa said about the idea of dissent within our community, I have really struggled. I'm from Gaza. I have really struggled. I've been excommunicated from a lot of my community, from Muslim spaces, from peace spaces. I've been pushed out, prevented from speaking because I focus on Hamas. I decry the ineffective forms of pro-Palestine activism, and I've chosen to engage the center-right and right-wing Israelis who are unreachable by most pro-Palestine audiences, even though I call out Israeli criminalities. I have called out for Netanyahu's arrests. I have done everything you can imagine to promote what is a shared message that we could agree on for the criminality of this war. So what advice would any of you have? I mean, we all care about our people, like all roads lead to Rome, but what advice would you have for how we actually promote genuine, diverse thinking and dissent within our community? I don't think it should be considered dissent to call Hamas a criminal enterprise, to decry unhelpful forms of activism. What advice do you have for someone like myself?
Thank you for this question. Just gonna, repeat it back just so I understand. Like, what advice do other, Canadian or non-Canadian Palestinians in the peace camp or in the coexistence or the dialogue group have for other Arab Muslim voices that are having a hard time within our own community? And so to address that, I'm going to first ask Mohanad. Right before I ask you, I just want to say head on, first of all, I recognize that you have a very thankless role in our journey. Very thankless. Very thankless. And I respect you. I respect you. And I thank you for sticking your neck out there because it's very difficult. And it's again, like, do we agree with everything? Do we agree with the choice of words? Well, how can I come and engage in rooms that you have spent time learning about if I don't listen to every voice at the table? So I just wanted to say that here and recognize that. That said, Mohanad, did you want to start us off with answering this question?
Thank you for the question. I heard you in the previous session, and it was very difficult for me to hear the words, if being honest here, and respectful also to how my reaction to that. I think we agree on something. I wouldn't personally would like to live under Hamas regime, definitely. Not in any socially, politically. The practices they are using definitely would not. And the way of killing civilians on the 7th October is totally it's condemned by all means. With that, the focus of Hamas is somehow, it doesn't give the full picture. And I think one of the questions that needs to be asked at the same time, what were the conditions that led to the creation of Hamas? What conditions has happened to Gaza and the Palestinians that created this resistance movements there? And by focusing on Hamas and ignoring the conditions of the siege of Gaza, on the occupation, on the settlements, on the controlling the life of whole nation, their movement, their food, what to eat, everything, I think we are missing here and missing the point. Although it's important, but the focus, there's somehow being, you cannot convince a dictator or a fascist, please accept me because I agree with you on something, and leave all things, other things away. There is something very, in my mind, like trying to please someone, to please them, accept me, to talk to me, and this is coming from the same unequal power balance that is happening today. And that's why that's why it was difficult for me just to focus on that and ignore the root conditions that led to this kind of struggle and movement with all its atrocities. And I see them and I condemn them. But still, just one moment, maybe because I haven't been hopeful at all. I feel very like, it's a dark, it's dark times, but I wasn't part of many shared activities with Jewish people. I didn't believe in them. Because somehow the focus was on the shared, like let's live together, speak together, have a dialogue together, and ignored the major gaps and the major problems that led to this distance. I always said, let's focus on the gaps and the problems. The sharing will naturally become between people. But the problem is not that we don't speak. The problem that there is a privilege people and less privileged people, and let's focus on how to bridge that gaps. But in my work, I work with many Jewish Israeli organizations, and I feel that we share a lot of the values and also what needs to be done. We work with organizations that work in the West Bank, defending Palestinians from the attacks of the settlers. We work with Bet Salem, Breaking the Silence, with Doctors for Human Rights. There's a lot of organizations that now I feel much more comfortable to work with, but I don't want to have a shared dialogue with anyone. I want to have shared dialogue with someone who believes in the same values and see and acknowledge the atrocities on that. And together we can have more pressure. Because expecting that any oppressor can be convinced to change his way, I think it's an illusion. Through history, they always have to. It's never from free will. It's usually they need to be compelled to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mohanad. Well said. Ahmed, welcome to Toronto. I belong to a movement. Myself received death threats back home from Palestinians. And at the same time, I have thousands of Palestinians farmers in the Jordan Valley, in the south of West Bank, Hebron, Masafa Yatta, and west of Beit Lahem, where we stood together and prevented settlement violations, settlement project, Israeli military, at the time before the judicial coup, where at least we had one court that will stand with us in Gaza. But at the same time, I criticized Hamas from inside Gaza and used my family power to protect me. I criticized PA, Abbas, and PLO from inside Ramallah and used my father's legitimacy to protect myself to be outside of the jail. But there is something really important, Ahmed, and I'm sharing as a brother here. You should understand why Palestinians, Muslims, Arabs don't like what you're saying. Because we have a deep trauma back home on the land from these well-maintained, well-invested in Palestinians, intellectuals who goes to the West, to the United States. They learn how to speak very well English, wear suits, and come with the colonizers' narrative to the land. It's a huge trauma. Palestinians don't like these people who come with aid. You know, they are US aid, foreign aid, EU aid. And unfortunately, we're sometimes labeled, this to some extent limited the Palestinian civil society from working on the ground because we've been labeled as, you know, foreign agenda. Ahmed, you have some, and I'm not here to criticize you. You know, I will die for your right to express your, even if I disagree with you. But when you say there is no genocide and the entire academia, legal experts, even Jewish Holocaust and genocidal experts said what's happening is genocide, and you go there, you will be seeing me, myself, saw you at that place that you're just striving to satisfy the colonizer. You are coming to your audience not speaking the نحكي غزاوي ونشخر يعني, to speak the local Palestinian language. It's really needed to have a Palestinian voice who speaks well English and the West will understand. We need this. We need someone to tell our story. We need someone like you, Raja, Ahmed, Mohanad, to tell our story. Because we failed to tell our story, big time. Unfortunately, we needed 60,000 and more Palestinians to be killed and blood to be in the streets that people start to understand what we've done for the last 80 years. So my recommendation, Ahmed, because I come from that place, that you need to invest to prove yourself. But at least nowadays we do have two narratives. We do have 142 countries voted for something, and Israel, United States been against. And I'm not saying to get rid of the other, but we lack player in the camp that brings people together.
Yeah, I just want to, take a minute because I think this is really, I think, a heart of a very, very tough issue that we all grapple with. I want to give empathy to everybody here, empathy to Mr. Khatib as well, and empathy to our audience. This is very, very difficult to talk about. I just want to throw that out there in the last 4 minutes that we have. I empathize. I have also found that I had to bring a Palestinian purity test. Of course, I always come like, I was born here, so I'm kind of like a foreigner, but also my great-grandfather smuggled weapons, but then now I talk to Jews and but I'm Canadian, I have a passport, this huge half an hour FBI, remember with those VHS tapes? I was watching Cinderella every day. It's this huge disclaimer. If you copy this, it's everywhere we go, this huge, so, I would say, yeah, absolutely. I think I love the standing together communications training for me. It also sounds like I've been doing everything wrong because I'm I need to show up in business suit and wear all my jewelry and speak well, but maybe no. You're no, don't push the foreign agenda. I don't know what we're supposed to do. We're all just we're all here trying our best. We're all trying to, end the bloodshed. We're all trying to just make our kids have a better time. Also, because I'm a mom of 2 boys, and I know we have 3 minutes left, we're going to take 1 or 2 questions, and Raja will have the last word. Because I am...
So we can catch up on all the questions.
Exactly. I'm just going to say, as the mother of 2 gorgeous boys, we're all going to shake hands at the end, because I think, my 2 boys are constantly fighting in the stroller. I'm can you just stop? You came from the same mother. Also, I destroyed my body and my mind, body, and spirit to bring you life. So just share the cookie. So we're all going to shake hands together.
Sure, yeah.
If you don't want to, that's fine, but we have to have a handshaking.
I have to share something because it's really,
Please.
really important.
Okay.
You're
And
not
then
less
Rasul.
Palestinian for sharing your own ideas. Ahmed, you're not less Palestinian for saying that. I wanted to make sure that everyone, we're a spectrum, we're humans. You have extreme left-wing Jews, you have the extreme Ben Gvir, you have in the middle. We are people, and Palestinians are. In fact, I'm enjoying giving you the chance that we are different, we're humans. So this way we will understand you, that we are humans. So it's a great opportunity to have people on the street protesting, saying Israel is a terrorist state, and you're having Ahmed here, and you're having Mohanad and Raja. We are different people, but we're not less Palestinian, Ahmed. I'm proud of you saying that. I disagree with you, but you have the right to express your feelings.
Okay, Rasul, and then we're going to wrap it up after Rasul, yeah.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. 2 of you already know me. أهلاً وسهلاً ويعطيكم ألف عافية. Just to introduce myself, my name is Rasul Kedani. I'm a Jordanian Canadian, and I've been involved in Palestinian activism in Toronto for some time. But I'm also the co-leader of U of T's branch of something called Bridging the Gap, which is a safe space for people connected to the land to have these conversations, because I feel, as Bashar elaborated, we're kind of lacking with polarization. And in respect to the protest outside, I think they're reasonable. I think they're valid, and I get their concern. And to speak frankly, I'm happy that even though 4 years ago I was rare to see someone with a kufi on the GO train when I commute to school, now it's very common. And people are beginning to sympathize. I like that people my age who previously might have been intimidated or not as cultured are coming out in droves to speak up for the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian people. My contention, however, is while I like this energy, I feel like, to be honest, it's becoming kind of a club where, there's a lot of demonstrations, there's pro-Palestinian coming together, but one struggles to convince I struggle to sometimes convince people from my kind of camper, like where I'm coming from, to attend something, be it Bridging the Gap or Standing Together or what have you. So I like this energy. I just want to shift it a little bit to something similar to what we're advocating here. I suppose, what advice would you give to take this energy that's passionate about Palestine and what's happening, and to put it into something dialogue related or civil society related, because people are upset too.
Thank you, Mr. Khouri.
Which question am I answering now?
How do we support Rasul?
Your website at.
The Palestinian movement in North America has gone through sort of generations of sophistication. I mean, I remember when I first came to this country, every time a Palestinian would be on television saying something, it'll be with a very thick accent that most people didn't even understand what they were saying. This is as all has changed. There's second generations and sophistication, technology, and all of that. And it's not only the Palestinians who are in the Palestinian movement these days. In fact, in some cases, they are a minority in a certain movement. They've been joined by other Arabs, Muslims, and a lot of people on the left. You know, since the adoption of the Palestinian cause by the Canadian left has had both positive and negative impact. The positive impact is that the Palestinian narrative became more part of the mainstream. The downside is that it tends to be ideological and single-minded, looking at Israel solely as a settler colonial apartheid, you know, name the adjective, and not having the historical and the depth of knowledge to understand the complexity of what's going on, and they end up, you know, saying things like "go back to Poland." I consider myself and Bashar as part of the Palestinian movement here. So are the people outside. So are those who write language such as, you know, we need to stop Canada's war machine. Give me a break. What was the question again?
You know what? We're actually at time. You guys did such a phenomenal job. Everybody, round of applause for amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you.